Hello, Duncan Green here with this latest video from the LSE influencing program. In this video, I want to talk about the bridge to tactics. It's really important that when you do all that work, understanding problems, understanding power, understanding stakeholders, when it comes to designing an influencing strategy, you don't just default to what you would have done anyway. That's a monumental waste of time. So how do you swallow that horse? How do you take all that thinking and turn it into a set of really promising tactics? So in this video, I want you to understand how that happens, how that bridge is built. I also want to highlight the importance of being able to see through the eyes of the people you're trying to influence, what we call the point of view of the other, POVO, in insider influencing in particular. The first thing to say about tactics is that there are so many that you should always be curious about what other campaigns and other activists are doing, learning, thinking about whether you can apply this to your context. However many things you can imagine, there are many more that you have not imagined, and you can learn by being curious. So do please read, talk, listen. So a really simple typology of tactics is to distinguish between public or outsider tactics and private or insider tactics. So public and outsider are in the public sphere. That includes online, digital, increasingly. And that may be raising awareness, influencing public opinion through the media or online, creating a sense of outside external pressure on those decision makers to bring about change. Sometimes you may run a project, deliver a service to show people in power that this works, that they should be picking it up. But also often you'll be organizing, protesting, telling a story about the need for change. Private and insider tactics are about getting the knowledge and the access to the system to advocate for change in the hidden spaces, the closed spaces. And that includes getting information, intel, private advocacy, choosing the right messenger, informal meetings, all sorts of tactics used to bring about that internal private model. And the aim there is to influence decisions from the inside. So strategy is likely to be a mix of both. You have both insider strategy tactics and outsider tactics. You're going to have online, it's very rare these days for any form of influencing to have no online component and no offline component. So it's usually a blend. Increasing numbers of campaigns and activist efforts also include efforts to raise awareness or change social norms and behaviors. But you do want to think about a number of questions. For example, do you really need mass mobilization for this? Would actually a small number of influencers be enough, or the right kind of evidence given to the right kind of people? You know, you don't always have to go out on the streets for everything, but just equally true, a research paper may not be what's going to move the dial on this thing. How confrontational do you want to be? Sometimes it's much, politicians are more willing to listen when things are not framed as a us and them fight. But equally, you may just be saying, well done, you've done this right here, why aren't you doing it somewhere else? But equally, sometimes you need to have a fight, and politicians and decision makers need to be a bit scared of you. So again, these are the kind of choices you make based on your power mapping, your stakeholder mapping, your understanding of the problem. And then back to that first slide, always be creative, be inspired by others, look for new ideas, brainstorm with people you don't normally talk to. But the key is that your strategy follows from your context analysis, your problem definition, your power analysis, and your stakeholder map. The kind of tactics you choose are going to depend partly on the stakeholders you want to influence, on the types of power you want to build or block or reduce. So in some cases, this is another 2x2. We love 2x2s, just not because they describe the world, but because they help you think. On the x-axis is it societal or individual? On the y-axis is it informal or formal? So it's similar to Ryan Kelleher. If it's societal and informal, you might be doing protests, you might be doing stunts. It's about public awareness. If it's informal and individual, then it's about a more personal experience. It might be about having conversations at neighborhood level, local events. If it's individual and formal, It's about service delivery, showing people that something works, creating jobs. And if it's societal and formal, it may be about lobbying, citizens' assemblies, public affairs, petitions. All of these are good, and this is just the tip of another iceberg, the iceberg of the number of potential tactics. Going back to that first slide, there are always more tactics than you could possibly dream of. Let's look around us and learn from each other. One way to do this is to learn from your stakeholder map. Start there and identify clusters of individuals, organizations, and build your tactics from there. So for example, when you look on the top right-hand quadrant of your stakeholder map, these are powerful, important decision makers who have a high level of support for your cause. You don't need to convince them. You may benefit by bringing people together who don't normally talk to each other, helping build coalitions, filling gaps on things like evidence, or linking them up with the group on the bottom right who are very keen on your issue but are excluded from power. So how do you build their power together? And how do you get them talking to the people on the top right? So building stronger coalitions with more of a voice for those who are typically excluded. The group in group C are the powerful people who are not bothered either way. They're on the fence, or they just don't see it as a priority. These are often the most important targets for an influencing campaign. And there you might want to think about, who's the messenger? Who's going to make them think that this is worth talking about? Who do they fear or respect? Or seizing those windows of opportunity, those crises, those scandals, those moments in the political spectrum or in the political timetable when decision makers are actually interested in picking up your ideas. Group D, high power and opposed, probably not worth bothering with, but you can try and discredit them. I'm not a big fan of tables, but you may want to use this grid to just record your initial thinking about your tactics, which sets out all the categories we've talked about so that you can communicate with others and then come back and look at it again.